We've all been in situations where we feel strongly about something, so strongly that we're ready to fight for it. It feels good to stand up for what you believe in, doesn't it? But what if I told you that sometimes we fight just as hard against the things we actually want without even realizing it? It's like being in a tug of war where you're unknowingly pulling on the wrong side of the rope. I mean, think about it like this. It's like watching Ross from Friends yelling, "We were on a break!"
We were on a break!
While sabotaging his own relationship at every turn. Here's the kicker. This isn't just a rare fluke. It happens all the time in ways that impact our lives and communities. More than we think. Curious? I'm going to show you how this happened. Crime is scary. Nobody wants to feel unsafe in their own neighborhood. And let's be honest, when you hear defund the police, it sounds like someone's trying to leave the barn door wide open while the foxes are circling. It's no wonder people were outraged. Who wouldn't be? But here's the twist. The movement wasn't about leaving anyone unprotected or even about the police. It was about making communities safer and smarter by focusing resources where they're most effective. Yet assumptions and misdirection on all sides turned a conversation about solutions into a fight about fear. And it wasn't just the media or politicians who distorted the message. The defund the police movement was also hijacked by people with personal agendas. Some wanted it to mean abolishing the police entirely. Others pushed to cut back on police funding without addressing the systemic changes the movement originally stood for. These diverging interpretations created confusion and made the movement an easy target for critics. But at the heart of the movement, it was never about abandoning law enforcement. It was about reimagining how public safety in general could work better for everyone. This isn't just a story about policing, it's a story about how human emotion, conflict, and how assumptions can lead us astray. You know, it's kind of like mistaking the shadow of a tree for a lurking predator. Our instincts often mislead us, and fear can obscure the truth. One of my life mottos is there's no sense wasting a perfectly good mistake. So let's see what we can learn from this mess, not just to understand what happened, but to explore the bigger lesson. Stick with me, and I'll show you how assumptions and agendas can mislead us when we let others do the thinking for us. Before I forget to say it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss out. Police unions, for starters, saw this as a direct threat to their funding and influence. Redirecting dollars to other services, that's money not going to their departments, their equipment, or their contracts. In government budgets, it's either use it or lose it, and you don't have the money for next year. For unions, this wasn't just about money, it was also about power. And then there's the private sector, companies selling surveillance technology, policing equipment, and even prison services. They thrive on the status quo. They're set up for it. Bigger police budgets mean more contracts, more revenue, and more reasons to keep things just as they are. Politicians also saw opportunities. Conservatives used the movement to rally their base with fear, while some progressives pushed so hard for radical changes that they alienated potential allies in the middle. But here's something that's often overlooked. By shifting some of the resources away from policing non-criminal duties, we could actually unlock long-term savings and budget reductions for taxpayers. Better service, less cost. Imagine investing those dollars into mental health services, housing programs, or addiction recovery. These solutions address the root causes of many issues, reducing the need for emergency responses down the line and ultimately costing less. And that's what we wanted, right? It's like a major oil company lobbying against renewable energy initiatives because the current fossil fuel system guarantees them profits. They resist change not because renewables wouldn't work, but because they'd work too well for everyone else. And the media, not blameless. Sensational headlines sold ads and drove clicks. Stories of chaos got far more attention than careful explanations of what defund the police really meant. This resistance isn't just theoretical. It shows up in city council debates, in news headlines, and even in casual conversations. It's designed to make you feel afraid of change, even when that change could make your neighborhood safer. Your tax dollars go further and result in more focus on crime. Take Joe, a father of two. He wants what we all do. Safe neighborhoods and police officers focusing on catching burglars and stopping violent crime. Karen's son, who struggles with schizophrenia, needed compassionate help during a breakdown, but instead he was met with handcuffs and a ride in a police car and hours of waiting in an emergency room with a police officer acting as a babysitter till he could get help. These situations highlight a broken system, one that frustrates everyone involved. They just want a system that actually works, and in the end, who lost out? People like Joe, Karen's son. The neighbors who just want a safer, smarter system. The winners? The ones with the money and power. It's frustrating, isn't it? But understanding this dynamic is the first step towards changing it. Now let's take a step back and think about this from the perspective of officers themselves. Police officers don't wake up every morning excited to mediate domestic arguments, handle suicide attempts, or manage mental health crises. They didn't sign up to be marriage counselors, therapists, or social workers, or deal with homeless people. What they did sign up for was to deter crime, catch bad guys, and protect the public. But instead, many find themselves bogged down with situations they're not trained for or they don't want to deal with. And often, that fear just makes them not comfortable in handling it. It's like asking LeBron James to coach a Broadway musical. Sure, he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, but that doesn't mean he's equipped to handle choreography and lighting cues. The same goes for officers. They're trained for law enforcement, not crisis counseling. I once spoke to a police officer who told me, "When I respond to a mental health crisis, I feel like I'm being set up to fail. I'm not a therapist, and I don't have the tools to really help. I want to make things better, but all I can do is try to keep the situation from getting worse." He shared how the constant backlog of calls stacked up through his shift, leaving no time to offer the kind of attention or care that people in crisis need. "It's not that I don't care," he said, "but I have 5 more calls waiting for me. How am I supposed to help someone get the long-term care they need when I can barely catch my breath?" This cycle isn't just exhausting, it's demoralizing. Officers feel stuck, and the people they're called to help end up with a Band-Aid solution instead of real support. And it's not just the police officers who feel the strain. The people they're called to help deserve better too. Don't they? This gap isn't just frustrating, it's a missed opportunity to address the root causes of so many emergencies before they escalate. Doesn't it make sense to let the right people handle the right problems? Take Eugene, Oregon's Cahoots program. Good program, stupid name. This initiative has been around since 1989 and offers a glimpse of what smarter public safety could look like. Cahoots stands for Crisis Assistance Helping Out on the Streets, and it's run by a local community health organization and not the police department. But things are changing. Here's how it works. Each team includes a medic and a crisis worker trained in mental health intervention. They handle a range of situations that don't require police intervention, such as mental health crises, homelessness, substance abuse issues, and even minor medical emergencies. When someone calls 911, dispatchers decide whether a crisis team or traditional police response is more appropriate. Think of the crisis teams like Mr. Rogers with a toolbox. They show up, they bring calm to the chaos, and they help fix what's broken without making things worse. Before this program, police officers in Eugene were often the ones responding to mental health crises. With no specialized training or resources, they were left with few options. Many times, they had to handcuff individuals, even if they weren't violent or a threat, just to transport them to the emergency room or for mental health care. For someone already in distress, being restrained like a criminal only adds to the trauma. Does it make any sense? And for the officers, it was a frustrating, time-consuming process that took them away from their primary role, addressing crime. Now, the crisis teams step in to handle these situations with care and expertise. They're trained for it. Instead of handcuffs, they bring empathy and solutions tailored to the individual's needs. They diffuse tensions, provide immediate assistance, and connect people with long-term support systems. This isn't just theory. It's happening. I mean, imagine if every city had something like this. Wouldn't Joe's concerns about police being stretched too thin start to feel less overwhelming? The ripple effects of a program like this go beyond immediate responses. By addressing issues at their roots, these teams reduce the strain on emergency systems. They lower crime rates. They reduce incarceration rates. And they foster trust between communities and first responders. It's not just a win for the people in crisis. It's a win for everyone. You remember that tug of war I talked about at the start? Well, it's time to stop pulling against what we truly want and start pulling together for real solutions. The light bulb aha lesson here isn't just about this one movement. It's about how fear, assumptions, and competing agendas can lead us astray. When we allow ourselves to be guided by sound bites and headlines, we risk losing sight of the bigger picture. But when we pause to ask the hard questions, who benefits, who loses, and what's the real goal? Well, that's when we uncover the truth and can make better decisions. So, next time you hear about a new movement or policy like wanting to privatize Social Security, ask yourself, what's really being proposed here? Who's shaping the narrative? And how can I be part of the solution instead of just being swept up in the division? If this conversation resonated with you, be sure to stick around and be part of our family here. Subscribe and join me for our next deep dive. Together we can learn, grow, and make smarter choices. And as always, stay curious, stay kind, and remember, if you do good things happen. Let's drop the rope and take a step forward. Until next time, see ya.